Good evening, everyone. It's that Weems guy here for another episode. Well, perhaps you're listening to this in the morning, so it'd be good morning, but we're recording it at night. Here for this episode is none other than Ken Campbell of Gunsite. How you doing, Ken?
Lee, it's always good to talk with you.
It's good to see you again. We've met, I believe, in 2014 at the Rogers Shooting School.
I might have had a little darker hair back then. I'm not sure.
I might have as well, but
Yes, sir. That's where we met. We got to go out and get training.
there you go. And that says something that you're the head of, a very famous school, but you're going to another school to get training.
Oh, I'll tell you what. It's the day I stop training is the day they'll be putting me in the ground. In the last people will tell me, "Hey, Ken, you work at Gunsite. You must shoot all the time." Well, I don't get to. I go down range to try to help with the classes a little bit. That's not my role. But in the last 3 years, I've been to Tom Givens. I've been to Gabe White. I've been to Dave Spalding. They've been up in the Arizona area. And so I've gone and done a couple day classes with them. I need somebody to stand behind me with a switch and crack me on the back of the calves and remind me what the fundamentals are shooting every now and again. But you got to keep getting training. And if you just stick with that one regime, man, you can it's almost incestuous.
Right. Yeah, we've got a joke that the surest way to shoot less is to become a firearms instructor.
Oh, that's not a joke, brother.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun when you get the guy who just thinks that I love shit. You know what I'll do? I'm going to come be a firearms instructor. Yeah, when they find out that they spend more time setting up targets and watching other people shoot and doing all the administrative work.
Oh yeah, cleaning up the range and getting things all set up, and you aren't kidding. But that's okay. It's still a great job.
There you go. So if you would tell people about you and how you got started.
Sure. I'm blessed to be the CEO of Gunsite Academy, the famed Gunsite Academy that Jeff Cooper founded over 46 years ago. And, in law enforcement, you'll come up to guys and say, "Hey, how's work?" And they'll be very sarcastic and they'll tell you, "Oh, I'm living a dream." Well, I'm not being sarcastic. This guy right here gets to live a dream. I'm blessed at what I get to do. I came to work at the sheriff's office in central Indiana when I was 19. The sheriff there, a fellow by the name of Ernie Hudson, gave me a chance, and I was a jail deputy. Now, that's kind of unusual at 19. And I did that for a few years and was going to college. I was married, had an opportunity to be a probation officer. So I did that about that much of my law enforcement career, but it let me finish college and go Hoosiers, Indiana University, by the way. And I was a reserve deputy, but then I was able to come on board as a full-time deputy. So I did that, and fortunately, Sheriff Hudson was a lawman. You would have liked him, Lee. He truly was a lawman, and he was also a huge believer in training. And he sent us to a lot of different schools. I wanted to be a gun guy, so I got to go to the State Academy Instructor School. I got to go to Ray Chapman and Masada Ayub and Smith and Wesson Academy and Glock. And that was about the first year of Glock. And then I got to go to Gunsite, and that was 1990. So I went there and did 250 and did fairly well. And again, the sheriff was a good guy. I think my phone's starting to sag here. Let me try to lift this back up here. Hey, this is a new mount here, so we're kind of test running it here. So anyway, I went to Gunsite, did fairly well, and the sheriff wanted to come to Gunsite. So I got to skip. Yeah, this thing's just sinking fast here. Let me tighten this thing up here, see if I can get it to stay better. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
So well, I'm turning the wrong knob or something here. So the sheriff came and took 250, and I took 499 pistol, level 3 pistol class. Had a great time. So I don't know, 8-9 months later, he called me and he said, "Hey, I know you did really good and you got to skip that intermediate pistol, that 350 pistol class. Well, I didn't, and I'm going to go back and take it. You want to go?" And I said, "Well, is it department training?" he said, hell yes. And I said, well, hell yes, I'm going. and so I got to go back, and that's the Cooper still owned the place and ran the place. Sorry about all this.
Sorry.
It just keeps folding down on me here. And that's what I get for trying something new on live as opposed to testing it. So I did the 350 class, and that's when Cooper still picked the folks. And Bill Jeans was ops manager then, and that's when I got the nod from Cooper saying I'm interested in that man. So I came back and went through what was called provost. He taught an instructor class, and I went through with the likes of people like Larry Landers and so on in the course. And then I did my apprenticeships called provosts. And I came on board full time as a part-time instructor in, I believe, 93. So I had a great time doing that. I was working my way up through the ranks at the sheriff's office. I was a SWAT guy, became a lieutenant, and then ops captain, and I was politically active back home. I was on township board, and then I was on what's called county council, which is the county fiduciary body. That was interesting, being a captain on the sheriff's office and the sheriff offering budgets. It was an interesting relationship.
That's actually prohibited by law here.
Well, it wasn't in Indiana at that point. For I don't know why, but you weren't the county executive, you were a fiduciary body. Right. But anyway, I digress. So this thing just doesn't want to stay up here. I ran for sheriff and was very blessed there, and won my first term, won my second term. Indiana has some limits for constitutional offices. So I had about 13 months left, and I was out at Gunsite, and I was leading a memorial service for one of our instructors that had he and his wife been killed in a plane crash. And Buzz Mills, who owns Gunsite, great man, by the way, great mentor. He approached me as we're cleaning up the cookie crumbs, and he says, so what are you going to do when you grow up? I said, what? He said, retire. Aren't you retiring? And I said, yeah, I got 13 months left. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I hope you bring me out and let me teach more, as one of the part-time instructors. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, well, why don't we talk about that? And he talked to me about being the chief operating officer at Gunsite. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, now, Ken, don't stand here with your mouth hanging open. Don't stand here with your mouth hanging open. And talk to him about it. And I'll tell you, Lee, I had a lot of things flash through my mind when he's talking about offering me this job. And simply put, when I came out here in 90, I remember standing on North Range the last day of class, looking around thinking, this has been a really great opportunity. Department sent me. I'll never get to come back. Right. Then fast forward, I happened to be working at Gunsite the week that Buzz Mills bought the place. There was another owner for about 6 years with Gunsite who he didn't do a very good job, and he ran Gunsite into the ground. And frankly, we weren't going to survive. And Buzz and Sonia Mills came in and saved Gunsite. Well, I was working that week. I was working with a guy named Pat Rogers, who's infamous in the training industry. He and I were teaching a .499 pistol, and the sale consummated at noon on Wednesday. Well, about 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, one of our students shot himself in the foot with his 1911. I thought, oops, I am so fired. I am so fired. The day the new guy buys the place and I get a student shoots himself. So that was the second thing that popped into my head. So anyway, Buzz and I came to terms at NRA in Indianapolis of April of that year. And when I retired at the end of that year, then Sherry and I came out here. We love it out here, like the climate, the political climate, and so on. So fast forward another 3 or 4 years, and we're at the Gunsite alumni shoot. And that's our annual match for our alumni. It's a great shooting match all day. You need to come out and shoot in that. It's fun. So we're there, and we'd surprised Buzz and Sonia. It was their 20th anniversary, and we had a couple of custom 1911s made up. The serial number was their initials and a number, and had them fully engraved by Tyler Gunworks, Bobby Tyler down in Texas. So I surprised them, get them up on stage and present them to them. And Buzz and Sonia very gracious and grateful and surprised. And then Buzz starts mentioning something about, well, Ken's done a really nice job here these last 3 or 4 years and so on. And I notice he's got something in his hands. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get a plaque, and son, you're doing a hell of a job. and so on. And he unwraps this framed document, and he said, the board of directors, now that's Buzz, his wife Sonia, and Buzz's best friend. He said, board of directors met last month, and Ken's now the CEO of Gunsight. And I'm thinking, oh hell, that's me. Oh well. So that's how I ended up with that. And I do love being here. And again, I truly am one of these guys who gets to live a dream.
Outstanding. Outstanding. All right. So let's backtrack back to, you're a young cop in Indiana, and what was the training like then?
Well, when Ernie Hudson took over the sheriff's office as sheriff, it was pretty poor. And it was your basic academy. And then, we'd tie the nail aprons on when we'd go out and qualify with our, at that point, it was Model 66s. And, you'd have the loose rounds in your nail apron and load from there, and, load and holster 6 live rounds. And it was not strong. But again, Ernie was big in training, whether it was trying to start up the SWAT team, whether it was first aid training, whether it's CPR training. We got that for the first time, whether it was firearms and so on. So hazmat training. So we started out below ground level and marched right on up.
What were the courses of fire like? As far as, was that still more NRA PPC based? Or
yeah, that's exactly what it was. We were still shooting the 50-yard line then, but that changed in about 83 or so, or no, maybe a little later than that, where they get away with the 50, and we stopped at the 25. Yeah, it was all PPC. That's all it was. And until we went to Gunsight, the nice thing about the sheriff going is everything became his idea, and we know how that works, right? So, but that's how we also started being issued. We were issued Smith & Wesson 645s at that point, and we switched over to 1911s. And I'm proud to say my old agency still carries 1911s.
All right. What was the firearms instructor school in Indiana? How long?
It was a week long, 40 hours, and it was the NRA program basically. And it was, when I went through, it was basically revolver oriented. And then a few years later, they wouldn't even allow you to carry an auto pistol in the basic academy. You had to carry a revolver. So then they switched over, and you started seeing a few more autos, and then, almost exclusively now. So that was one of the things I got to do on the job, was I got to go help be an adjunct person at the state academy and help with the firearms program with the basic students.
And so was basically your agency then. So you've got the state certification, but then you guys are going to Gunsight, and you're just coming back and doing that in the agency. That's separate from anything the state was doing.
That's correct. Then also with Sheriff Hudson, he was big again in training. So we started bringing in, whether it was Gunsight for offsite courses, Bill Jeans with Morgan, Louis Auerbach came for, gosh, I don't know how many years Louis came. Pat Rogers came, Colt came, David Scott Donnellan with tactical tracking classes. We tried to become a training hub in central Indiana. So not only did we have law enforcement agencies come, but most critical, most important, is we allowed properly vetted citizens to attend training with our guys and gals. A lot of the law enforcement agencies wouldn't pay the money for their guys and gals to come, so I couldn't get the student minimums I needed. But once I could show we vetted the person, they could come, and that did several good things. It made great relationships with the public and the police. Let them realize we both put our pants on the same way every day. Some of the folks that were a little more affluent realized our training budget wasn't as strong as it could be, and they'd make donations or they'd sponsor somebody to take one of the classes. And gosh, I'd reach out to some of the other neighboring agencies and some of the big agencies, and oh no, we take care of our own training. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's good to hear what they're doing on the West Coast and the East Coast and in Nebraska and what they're seeing. And that's what these itinerant trainers bring to you, as opposed to only what agency A or agency B sees. It's incestuous training. So we hosted a lot that way. And that certainly, with me being assigned to the range, that made me a stronger, better firearms instructor. I can't tell you how much I learned from Louis Auerbach, from Pat Rogers, from Bill Jeans, two of those three have passed away. That's like the losing a great library, and Bill Jeans is retired. So, I was very blessed to be able to work with those guys and learn from them. And I hope I've retained that much of what they've forgotten.
There you go. We did a very similar thing at our sheriff's office. I started hosting classes in 2014, and I would take one of the slots and I would put one of our other instructors in the other host slot, because typically we get 2 for hosting the class.
Yep.
And, we were allowing private citizens to come because that's what it took to fill the classes.
Yes,
And
sir.
and then it grew as started developing our firearms instructor group. One of the other guys kind of took the lead on hosting some courses, and we would alternate. I would host one and he would host one, but we would both do the thing where we would take the other slot and give it to another instructor.
Right.
And so that way we were able to expand our instructor cadre's base of knowledge. And then sometimes when we were bringing, so Tom Givens has been here a number of times. Well, all of the instructors had gone through the classes, so we started putting in line level people as kind of a reward for good work, putting them in the classes and spreading that knowledge all throughout the agency. And, it's just, you were an agency head, so maybe you can help speak to this, that some of our type A training brethren just don't understand. And some of the people in the training community don't understand us. Why is it they're more training? Why is it they're better training? Well, one is you just don't have the time. Somebody's got to answer the 911 calls.
Yeah, somebody's got to patrol.
Somebody's got to work the recs, and the budget numbers are there. And,
yep.
and even if you had more money to do training, you still got to have the personnel to be able to do it.
Yeah, you got to have bodies to fill those shifts.
Right.
No, I understand. You just got to do the best you can with what you've got and try to maximize that as much as you can. And I know that sounds like I never was a politician. I was an elected official, by the way. Right. That sounds like a political answer, but that's what you've got. The real world is, somebody's got to be out there patrolling. Right. And either you got the bodies or you don't.
Right. Yeah. Our patrol division is 32 deputies. We're like 55 sworn. And we have 4 high schools in the county that have football teams. Well, if all 4 of them are home on Friday night, and you've got to have 4 or 5 deputies at each ball game, and then you've got to have the shift man. And guess what? There's not a.
Oh yeah, and I don't know about you. I several of my deputies were coaches, basketball, football, and so on. Yeah. So they're there, and that's well worth the time investment. Right. Having that police officer coaching those great young men and women, but they lost a couple more people too. And I was never shy on coming out and working. I never drove an unmarked car. I always wore a uniform, always wore body armor. But so because every Marine's a rifleman, well, every deputy's a deputy, and so I'd come out too. But still, there's only so much you can do with the resources you've got available to you.
Right. We have 15 deputies that are tied up directing traffic every time school lets in and school lets out. And so we have to schedule in services. I've got a bunch of range work coming up where my class starts at 9 and it's over by 1, so that the deputies that have to be at a 2 o'clock elementary school that lets out can leave the range in time to be at their school crossing.
Yep.
Yeah, because
I understand.
They can't get there till 9 because they had to direct traffic in the mornings, and then they got to leave by 1 so they can get there. And that's just the kind of stuff that people don't see and don't want to see. It's all the chiefs or the sheriff's fault that we don't have more. Right.
Yeah, and sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. You get the ones that carry a briefcase as opposed to a pistol or a carbine or a shotgun. But sometimes it's just simple economics and logistics.
Right. And you got to get the funding. The taxpayers have to pay for it.
Yep.
And there's creative ways, as we've already discussed, to get around it, but it's hard if you got an agency of any size.
I'll tell you, when my first budget cycle or second budget cycle as sheriff, and I was a recession era sheriff, I'd been on the county council, so I'd sat with most of the people on that board, and they're trying to cut here and cut there, and I was always very conservative. and I didn't overspend my lines, and I stayed within them and so on. And they were cutting my ammunition line. And I looked at the county attorney and I said, would you and that's not a prosecutor, that's their
Right.
legal representative.
Right.
So would you kindly explain to them what the retainer fee, just the retainer fee, will be on the next shooting? Now, Sheriff, you know I don't work for you, I work for them. I said, that is exactly why I'm asking you to tell them that. But their response was, well, Sheriff, we know you'll find that money someplace else. And they were right. I found it. But I could have also used that money for DARE, or I could have used that other money I found for car repairs, or, anything along in there. But, you just gotta work your tail off and get it done for your guys and gals. Because if it comes down to using that firearm, my era, it's got to be Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, Pete Rose. It's got to be those guys stepping up to the plate when it comes to that. Otherwise, and quoting my old friend Louis Auerbach, every one of those shots that misses goes into the busload of nuns and orphans that's driving behind.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
Yep. And again, there's all sorts of priorities. As you mentioned, if you take money from one place, that's money gone from another. I think I've told in a previous episode, but I'll rehash it here. It took me 3 budget cycles to fully equip patrol rifles for everybody. Yeah. I bought the rifles themselves in one budget cycle, bought aim points in another, and then we took seized funds to buy slings and flashlights and extra magazines for those rifles.
Yep. We ended up with DRMO guns. We got 1911s. And what I did is I had our armor go through them and do what he could. And then I sent him up to one of our local gunsmiths, and he milled the slides. And I hated doing that to these GI guns, right? I mean, the Springfields and Remington Rands and all that. But and they belong to the U.S. government. At any point, they could come back and say, we want these back. So I had them milled, and I put Novak sights on them. I turned them into real decent guns. And they were, I mean, I didn't have to change the barrels or anything. And that's how I got like my reserve deputies. I could issue them firearms for the first time. We were able to get M16A1s through DRMO. I neutered them. We didn't need select fire on patrol. So the armor neutered those, so they're semi-auto. So that's how I got more guns out on patrol. Supervisors had M14s. So, but again, we just had to be creative in how we did it, whether it's budget cycles or finding grants or government programs or whatever there was. And that's how we got it done.
Excellent. You mentioned the Smith & Wesson Academy. Could you discuss it?
Sure. I got to go 2 or 3 times or 4. I got to go for revolver armor school. That was 2 weeks long. It was an old gent by the name of John Contra that ran the program there in Springfield. And man, the end of that first week, your fingers hurt because you truly learned to work on guns. You were fitting and filing and so on. You'd take that gun, do whatever piece you were up to him, and he'd look at it, shake his head, point for you to go back to your chair. And so that was a 2-week school. That was a great time. That was in the early 80s. And then I did a refresher or 2. And then when we went to auto pistols, I got to go to the auto pistol instructor school. John at that point had passed away. With all due respect to the folks that ran it then, it wasn't the same without John. He was just one of those guys that had been there forever and knew it all inside out. And then I got to go to the Smith & Wesson auto pistol instructor school. And that was my first real training, actual training, just involving an auto pistol. And that was in St. Louis. A traveling school they did, and that was a great school. And I really learned more about a traditional double action semi-automatic pistol at that point. That's why my first introduction to Glocks. Also, that was the first year Glocks were out, and there were 2 guys there in class that had them. We called them, of course, the Glock heads. And we got to shoot those and thought, I'm going to, again, all due respect to my friends with Glocks, I'll keep my Smith & Wesson at that point. So anyway, but of course I like the 45 better than I do the 9. That's just my personal, you may like Coke, I may like Pepsi. So.
All right. It's funny you mentioned the armorer schools. So the revolver school was 2 weeks long, correct?
It was. It's not anymore. I think it's a week long now.
All right. I went through the armorer school for the 3rd Gen Smiths in long about 2005, 2006. And the tuition then was, I want to say $450. and then you had to buy like $150 toolkit,
Yeah.
and it was a 3-day class. And then to contrast that, we were looking at making a change in our firearms, and I went to a Glock armor school to learn more about the Glock and during the process. And it was a 1-day school.
Yeah, you put all those parts in a bag and kind of shake it up, and it turns into a Glock.
Yeah. So a 1-day school, the tuition was $150, and they gave you the tool because it was like a punch.
We host Glock out here for the armor school and the advanced armor school, and it hadn't changed any. And we're great partners with Chris Edwards, who's been with Glock forever. He used to be a deputy down in Louisville. He's the head of that program. I think he's the 3rd senior employee at Glock now. There's Gaston Glock, their HR person, and then Chris Edwards. Well, anyway, Chris comes out when he can because he's a multiple Gunsite grad, and actually he's part of our adjunct faculty. He's one of our instructors. So part-time guys, but we love having the Glock folks come out. But it sure had he was going through, his daughter was taking a class one time, and he said, "Hey, if you guys bring your Glocks in, and, I'll go through them while I'm just here hanging out." And as much as I tease about Glocks, if my wife could be hearing us, she'd say, "Tell them how many you own." Well, I'm not going to admit it publicly, but anyway. I take my wife's Glock 19 in to have him look it over, and he comes to me and he says, "Can I keep these?" And he's got a handful of parts. I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, "Oh, nothing." This is that is one of the earliest Gen 1 Glocks I've seen in a long time, and I want to keep these parts to use as examples in armor school. I put all new parts in the gun. I said, "Well, sure, Chris, whatever you want to do." So anyway, it's good times.
Yeah, he is such a good guy. I've had the pleasure of doing his Leosa qualification numerous times.
He lived down in Atlanta area.
Yeah, of course, he was in that class at Rogers as well.
Oh yeah, he was. I'd forgotten that. Yeah, just a great guy.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that little tidbit has a lot to do with why Glock became so predominant in the market, because all right, if I'm having to maintain the Smith & Wessons, if you have to exchange an extractor, well, that's got to be a hand fit extractor.
Yep.
Hand fit to that gun.
Yep. Sure does.
And, we had a problem where somebody put parts in the wrong bins and they all look like springs, and they put the springs in the wrong bins. And so we thought we had a bunch of bad parts at one point in time. And finally somebody figured out, hey, wait a minute, I think this goes in that. And we solved a lot of our problems there. But, agencies running a Glock, anybody can fix a Glock.
Jeff Cooper called it a duffer's gun. They work, they run. To me, they're like a Timex watch. They'll just run it, and go out and bury it in the range. He'll come back a year from now, hose it off, reload it, put a little lube on it. It's going to keep on running. To me, it doesn't have the character and soul of a well-worn 1911. But it's something, a lot of cops don't maintain their equipment, their guns. And sometimes that's what they need. They need a Timex watch, not a Rolex.
What about Chapman?
Interesting class. That wasn't a shooting class. It was all lecture. Big, powerful man. Big, powerful personality. That's one that I wish I could have taken a shooting class from, but it would just never. And Chuck Taylor's another one I missed out on, but I would have liked to. But it was a 3-day lecture class he and Masad Ayub did, and real good. I was a real young cop then. That was probably early 80s, somewhere along in there. They were doing a travel and road show, but he's one I'd like to really pick that brain.
You mentioned that you brought Louis Auerbach into your place in Indiana. Was that when he was with Gunsite or with the Yavapai?
Well, Louis came and took classes at Gunsite. Cooper liked him and hired him, and then he had to go back to South Africa. And then Cooper was able to get him back here as his sponsor, and Louis became a citizen. And he was a staff member and then ops manager for a while. And then he left and started his own company, Yavapai Firearms Academy. But he still came back periodically and taught at Gunsite. I met him at Gunsite. Actually, Sheriff Hudson met him there as well. And he had him come to the sheriff's office and start doing classes. And I was assigned to the range, and that's how I've actually got instructor certification number 2 from Yavapai Firearms Academy. Louis and I taught more classes together than I can count, whether it was here at Gunsite or whether it was back home at the sheriff's office, or I worked for him some around the country. As a matter of fact, Lee, my dog's named after him. Louis liked dogs more than he did people, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
And Louis passed away about the same time we got this golden doodle puppy. And we checked with Lee, his spouse, and said, would you mind? And she says he would love that. He'd always said he wanted to come back as a dog and live in some nice person's house. So Louis lives on. He's kind of got the same hair. It's got that hair. It kind of goes wild. So
well, you mentioned Indiana. One of my degrees is from the University of Georgia, which, won the big championship this week.
Yep.
The last time they did it, 41 years ago, Vince Dooley was the head coach and Irk Russell was the defensive coordinator. Well, Irk Russell left the next year and took over at Georgia Southern, which is a smaller university here in Georgia. And he ended up winning multiple national championships with them at the field championship division level, or what used to be 1AA. And he later wrote a book. And in that book, he said it used to bother him that when he was at Georgia, that people named their sons Vince and their dogs Irk. And then he moved to South Georgia and finally realized that people think more of their dogs than they do their children.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Yep.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. The old veterinary joke is, tell someone that their dog has a condition and that it might be hereditary. And they say, well, I don't have that. Neither does my husband.
I'm going to steal that one from you, brother. That's good.
Any good Louis Auerbach stories other than the dog you'd like to share?
I'll tell you what, he could diagnose shooter problems better than anybody I ever had the pleasure of working with. And Jeff Cooper thought he and Pat Rogers were 2 of the top 5 in the world with instructors. But I'm standing on the range one day and one of the students comes up to Louis and he says, I want this real high speed, low drag, one of those kind of classes. And Louis takes his sunglasses off and he took the camel out of his mouth. And he said, just what exactly is a high speed gunfight, Slick? And he looked at the guy and it sounded like he was being smart, but he wasn't. But then Louis went on to wax on eloquently about how until you master the basics, all high speed, low drag is a mastery of the basics. It's under stress, be able to deliver on demand. And that was one of the, that was a really, obviously it stuck with me years later. Just what exactly is a high speed gunfight? It's the mastery of the basics. And what is that saying? The master has failed more times than the student has tried. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I don't like to use the terms basic and advanced in my class structure because I look at it as there are the essentials and then we're adding layers on top of those, but you're just competing. Sure. You're still conducting the essentials. You're just doing it with more difficult challenges in front of you.
Right. You're just putting more stress, more things to think about, more things to do on, but it's what it comes down to. Sight picture, trigger press, follow through on both. Right. I mean, what it all boils down to is that if you don't have sight picture, sight alignment, you don't have proper trigger press, you don't have follow through both, you're relying on luck, but luck favors the prepared.
Outstanding. Anybody else from that era you would like to mention?
Well, I've got to go back to Jeff Cooper. Mm-hmm. A lot of these young instructors nowadays think a lot of these things they're teaching are new, unique, their idea, and it's a derivation of what Jeff Cooper came up with as he developed the modern technique. I was listening to one recently on a podcast or a YouTube or whatever, talking about this innovative brass bead front sight. Yeah, new and innovative. I think I remember reading about those in the 1800s. Not sure, but so Jeff Cooper was a real unique fellow. And, and I've heard the stories, Gunsite's the Southwest Dinosaur League, and, we're teaching it's from people who have never been here, but we'll discuss that later probably.
Yeah.
But we have evolved over these 46 years. That's one of the great things about the modern technique. It wasn't developed to be static. You only let people shoot Weaver. No, we don't. We shoot a fighting stance. We teach people to shoot with strong foot forward. We teach them to shoot with support side foot forward. We teach them to shoot with both feet, on the line. We're not going to be in that perfect shooting stance when the flag flies. So Cooper is just one of these guys you need to read, whether it's his books like To Ride, Shoot Straight, Speak the Truth, and so on, or what are my favorites are called the Gargantuan Gunsight Gossips. He wrote on the back page of Guns and Ammo magazine for years called Cooper's Commentaries, and they're just little excerpts, a few paragraphs. And those were all consolidated into 3 different volumes. And whether you want to read about philosophy, shooting history, the history of the Baker flag, the history of the scout rifle, sights, what his belief was on different shooting stances, it's all in there. And it's a great history lesson of the world, much less shooting. I've got mine, and I keep those little yellow sticky pad notes, and I'll write scout rifle and I'll tag it on that page. So if I need to go back to it, I can find it. So Jeff Cooper is one of those guys that really impacted all the firearms instruction, I think, currently being done. I think 95% of it is a derivation of what he started when he was able to consolidate and turn it into lesson plans.
Yeah. One of the thrills that I had when I was able to visit Gunsite a few years ago for a class was in the classroom, there was a glass case, and in the case were like some of Mr. Cooper's lesson plans, and opened the various pages and everything. And I went by and tried to read everything on every page that I could.
Yeah.
And it's just, okay. Everything that we're doing in modern training evolves from that.
It does. It truly does.
Yeah.
Something neat we're doing. One of our students, we call him Gunsite family. One of our family members, he had 2 sons in one of our youth classes this summer. Well, he volunteered to go down into the sconce, the Cooper Home Library, and he's got a program. So he's cataloged every book in Jeff Cooper's library. He just came back and finished it a couple of weeks ago, and soon we'll be able to produce a list of all the books in Jeff Cooper's library. And talk about an eclectic mix of books. Right. You think it was only about shooting or whatever. It's not. It's world history. It's motor car racing. I'll tell you a fun Jeff Cooper story. I was next to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and there are ways you could do track escorts, getting folks in, and generally there's donations to help the motors so they could go to parades and things like that, but they'd let others help. Well, I arranged through a buddy of mine. Jeff Cooper was a big motor car and motor racing enthusiast, even wrote a book on it. That's actually how Harris Publications started printing him, was through, originally his book was a motor car racing book. But anyway, he and Janelle and another couple were coming to the Indianapolis 500. Well, I called a buddy of mine. Hey, Lee, can you help me out with a track escort? And I'd let them know. And you just blow right through all the checkpoints, because you're coming in under escort. So I can get you in, I can't get you out. Well, you'd have thought I gave him a foot locker full of $100 bills. And they never forgot it. Even Mrs. Cooper to the end would always say, oh, and I still remember us going into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And, you can do something nice like that for people that have altered our world in such a positive way. It just, it's wonderful.
You referenced earlier, a lot of people had things to say about Gunsite, but they've never been to Gunsite.
No, they have not. Hey, I'm watching the battery on my phone here. I hope we're going to keep going here. Right. I'll read some of the comments on some social media, and it'll say, they'll make some comment. Well, I'll look them up in our student database. We've got it all the way back to day one. They've never been here. So it's interesting for them to be able to make their informed opinion without much real information. I'd suggest folks go on DuckDuckGo and type in Gunsite and read some of the after action reports that students are writing after they leave Gunsite. Yeah, we post them on our website, but of course you're going to think, well, they only post the good ones. You go on there and read. Is everybody going to be 100% happy? There's no way in the world, but 99% of them are, and I stand by what those folks write on those commentaries. So, some of these folks that are posting negative, they've never been to Gunsite, they've never experienced it.
Would you care to delve into the rating system?
Sure, it's our grading system. I'm going to turn around here and grab a charger cord.
Sure. Folks, what we mean by our rating system is for classes like the 250 pistol. There are multiple ratings that a student can receive based upon their performance in class. As soon as Mr. Campbell here gets his phone plugged in, we'll let him explain it in more detail.
Yep, sorry about that.
Sorry.
That's again the thing about live stuff like this is that you get the warts right along with it. So our grading system is something that Jeff started years ago, and what he did is, let me get it plugged in here. Okay, we're back in business. What he did was he needed to grade classes, and he didn't want to give a numerical percentage. He called it a certificate of completion, a marksman 1, and an expert rating. And a certificate of completion means you came, you learned, you did okay, but you've got a long way to go. A marksman means you came and you did a pretty good job. And a marksman level lets you go to the next level, of course. A marksman 1 means you came with a skill set, you got better at your skill set. And an expert, it's called the golden E. The expert rating is not common, and it means you came at a very high level, you excelled throughout, and you get this expert rating. Now, and our grading is done subjectively. It's not based on your score punching holes in paper. Some of our competitive shooters come and they'll do real well when the target turns and they punch holes in the target. We're a gunfighting school. We're here to teach you how to fight with a weapon system. We've got live fire shoot houses. We got live fire outdoor simulators. And that's what it's based upon. So when you go through those live fire simulators, that's really where the grade's made. Those instructors are watching you, working with you, seeing what you do, how you respond to it. Do you make use of concealment and cover? Do you get hits? Do you shoot good guy targets? Do you listen and learn so you don't make the same mistakes the next day? And your grade is really made in those simulators. The paper score might be a little way to bump you a little bit, but if you screw up in the simulators, you're not going to get that expert or maybe not even an M1. And I'm an old school guy where you and I'd be arguing as coaches, well, is this guy going to be a marksman or a marksman 1? And Jeff would simply say, would you take him with you in a fight? Well, yes, sir, I would. Well, then he's a marksman 1. And we've done that on the job. Certain guys that you're happy to take in with you on a fight. And there's a few others you're thinking, buddy, why don't you watch the doors outside? So that's how the grading system works. And truly, and if you get an expert rating at Gunsite, you get a 24 karat gold Raven pin that we give to you. It's not plated, it's 24 karat gold Raven pin because it's something that needs to be acknowledged and recognized.
Sure. All right. Anything that I haven't asked you about tonight that you would like to talk about?
Folks, you need to keep getting training. I know it's expensive. And when I was a young deputy, married, 2 kids, a dog, working part-time jobs, I did everything I needed to, whether it was saving deposit on pop bottles, working some more extra jobs. I'd negotiate with my boss. Okay, look, if I can come up with a way to pay the tuition, will you give me department ammo and not make me take vacation time? I do everything I could so I could keep getting that training. I can't rely on the agency to send me to training. Then the other part of that is if you come back and you don't share it, shame on you. Share that training. You know, you may not be the department instructor, but you got partners you work with, and they may be the ones who are saving your bacon on this call. So share that knowledge with them so that you two are on that or your squad, whatever it happens to be, so you're all on the same page. But guys and gals, keep getting training, especially in today's age. I hate to sound like the old cops when I came on the job, right after Miranda. Oh, I don't know how you're ever going to do the job. Well, improvise, adapt, overcome, we do. And so I don't want to sound like that, but we didn't, the young cops today are facing something that we didn't face when we came on the job with some of the public attitude. Now, remember, the people that are complaining all the time are the ones who get the publicity. There's a ton of great Americans out there that are very much on law enforcement side. They just don't get the publicity. There's a ton of those, but all these cameras and all these other things going on, it's changed a bit. And I guess it was good for me to transition into my next phase of life.
There you go. I'm not in the position anymore where I deal with this type of thing, but anytime there was some big mass or big high profile protest around the country involving law enforcement, I could just go ahead and start setting it up that the citizens that would come forward that would want to start providing meals for our staff. We'd have to start scheduling that, because there were people that would come and make a point of saying, that's those folks that are against you, they're not everybody. They're not everybody. There's still folks out here to know what you're doing.
I'll tell you, when I was a baby policeman, still an FTO, I was riding along with an old captain, and we were going, how much this impressed my brain. We were driving eastbound on Noble Street, approaching Indianapolis Avenue. And we passed, it's about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and we passed this vagrant looking guy, probably drunk. And the captain made some disparaging remark about him. We got up to the stop sign, and he stopped, sat there a minute. And he looked over at me. He goes, don't ever do that. I'm thinking, what did I do? He said, don't ever make an assumption like I just did. That may be the nicest guy in the world right there. Yeah. I made an assumption based on his appearance and time of day and so on. He goes, it's easy for the jackasses of the world to get in your brain. And you think and prejudice, you think everybody's like that. The vast majority of the people we deal with are good people, and they are happy to see us, even in the worst moment in their lives. But we don't hear from them, and we don't remember them. So that's what you got to remember, young policeman. And obviously I did, and I hope I was able to share that same thing with the many, many young deputies and police officers that I got to work with in my career.
There you go. I thought of another question all of a sudden.
Yes, sir.
Tell everybody about the off-campus training that Gunsite offers.
Oh yeah. Have you, if you've got a range that will let us work from the holster, have restrooms, have some classroom facilities, restaurants not far away, maybe some steel targets, that's not a deal breaker. Gunsite will come to you. We send mobile training teams to you, and we try to work out a deal with the local range, whether we pay the student pays a per person range fee, or just like you mentioned earlier, get a couple of free seats. Now, what that gun club or what that department does with those free seats is up to them. They may want to give it to their officers. They may want, if it's a gun club, they may want to raffle it off, use it as a money maker, and so on. And most of our offsite training are 3 days, and we send Gunsite instructors to you to do those classes. We do them now in Lebanon, Indiana. We do them in Colorado, South Carolina,
Nashville,
Tennessee. That's another venue I'll talk separately about. But we're always looking for venues. We do private events at private ranges too. We can do that. All you have to do is contact us. In this case, you can contact me, Ken at gunsite.com, but I'm going to refer you to our training director, Lou Gosnell, Lew, at gunsite.com, and you can set that up, and we'll work out the price and so on. Now, Nashville, Tennessee, Royal Range. What a great location we've got there. We actually do the 5-day 250 pistol class there because they've got an indoor shoot house. It's simunitions, but that doesn't matter. It's a live fire shoot house. So at Gunsite, you get 2 indoor simulators and 2 outdoor simulators. At Royal Range, you get 4 indoor. Well, with some folks, the indoor simulators are more realistic for their world than outdoors are. So we have Gunsite instructors. We got a few that live in that area. We kiddingly call them the Tennessee Mafia. But we've got some great instructors live in that area, or we bring them in from other places, and they teach at Royal Range. So we try to come to your neighborhood as best we can. We certainly want you to come here to Arizona. Gosh, come experience the hot desert in northern Arizona. When you go to the off-sites, depending on where it is, it may be like the county fair, Royal Range, maybe like the state fair. We'll come on out to Disneyland and see what we can do. We're 3,200 plus acres. We've got 27 ranges. We've got multiple indoor and outdoor simulators. We can shoot from contact out to 2,400 yards. We teach everybody from a little old lady who's a door greeter at Walmart to the CIA, to various special operations command folks. But our bread and butter is the majority of the folks that are listening to us right now. Pat Rogers used the term Earth people. That's our bread and butter of folks, and always has been.
The 3-day classes, say like I know the 5 days called Pistol 250 for the first class. The 3-day will be Pistol 150. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do 3-day Pistol 150, 3-day carbine 123. Oh, I'm sorry. We're also up in Anchorage, Alaska. We do offsites up there in the summer. Okay. We do 3-day shotguns, which are 160s. And then we'll also, you tell us what you want, we'll build it. In Lebanon, Indiana later this summer, we're going to do a 1.5-day pistol, 1.5-day carbine. Now, the downside to those 3-day classes, they're really good intro to, and they're really good refreshers, but they don't let you go to the next level course because we don't have the simulators. We don't have live fire shoot houses and outdoor simulators in those classes. And that's critical to let you be able to advance to the next level.
All right. So those classes are unrated?
That is correct. They're not a graded class, but what it does for you is you're in Georgia, you're in central Indiana, and you think, boy, I'd really like to go to Gunsite, but before I commit to, a 5-day class, travel all that far and so on, let me get a taste of it here. And then you come and take that 150 pistol class and think, gosh, if they were able to do this much with me here, just think what they could do with me on site.
Okay. Anything else we'd like to cover about Gunsite?
No, we love seeing people. Another way can help getting you there. There's an organization called the Jeff Cooper Legacy Foundation, and it's a 501c3 that started up with the Cooper family after Colonel Cooper passed away. And we help raise money for it, and other folks do. And it's run by the family, the 2 of the daughters, Lindy and Christy, and granddaughter Vicky. And you go to the Jeff Cooper Legacy Foundation webpage, they do scholarships for tuition to the 250 pistol class here in Arizona. That's about $1,900. Now, you still got to pay your hotel and your travel and your ammunition and meals and so on, but that makes you have skin in the game. And I think that's important. You need to have skin in the game. If I gift it to you 100%, it's not valued as much to you. But that's a way that can pay for a good chunk of that trip. We can help you save money too, whether you look at the lodging on our webpage. If you call some of the hotels direct that we list and say, oh, I'm coming to Gunsite, you get a discount. It's basically about a government rate, but that's a nice deal. The bed and breakfast community here love our students. They're not party animals. They come, they rent the place. About the most they ask for is if they've got any old towels they could use for gun cleaning rags. They don't trash the place. They aren't drinking and carousing. In my prior life, I was involved with Economic Development Commission. Well, here we're one of those businesses the Economic Development Commission wants, because just think of what the tourism tax is our students pay. Heads and beds tax, the rental cars, the planes, the groceries, the restaurants, the fuel, all these different things all add up that are great positive revenue for Yavapai County, the state of Arizona, and the United States as they're flying in from all over. So anyway, so the Jeff Cooper Legacy Foundation does scholarships. So that's certainly a way to help make your trip a more affordable.
So that just leaves the one question that you have for everybody, doesn't it?
That's right. I got one left. And if follow us on Facebook, I do Facebook Live, and they always close the same way. When are you coming to Gunsite?
Well, there you go. I'm hoping to get back out there. That is
Don't tease me. Don't tease me.
That is one of the plans. I really want to
You-
come back out. I want to do a 250 pistol, and that's really something I've got chalked up. I want to do because it's, in the history and the development of firearms training, that's, one of the key cornerstones. That's old. I call it Old
is.
Testament, but I don't want to do that. I guess that's it's chapter 1. I guess would be the way to put that.
I'll go with that. And you come back out, your glass won't be clear like it is now. It can be brown like it is with me, and it's on me, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, but I can't hold my ice cream, so I don't know if I can handle the brown water. So
Careful now, ice cream. Isn't that what Brandon eats? Doesn't he eat that ice cream all
could be. Tom Givens says he's not sure if I'm a cop because I don't drink coffee and I don't drink bourbon. So that's
you don't drink coffee either, man. And I've liked you all these years.
I like cold bubbly caffeine.
Yeah, so that's all right.
Yeah. And of course, I got to have my water going on all the time.
Yes, sir.
To our audience, we very much appreciate you coming back week after week. And the numbers have continued to grow, except for last week I screwed up something in the upload, and that's messed up our numbers for the week. But we're recovering very well, thanks to all the guests that have been coming, but most importantly to the audience. Thank you for your time.